Cancer 23, a meeting of a literary society. I imagine a group of old ladies, a few gentlemen with white hair sitting around on a Tuesday night drinking tea and discussing Proust or Thomas Hardy, or perhaps even the latest film festival at Cannes, or perhaps artworks. And by doing so, they not only find society, pleasant society, but they also refine their sense of beauty. They refine their sense of understanding works of art. And this is of great benefit by receiving opinions which differ from your own. This is the only way, really, you can expand your perception. It's no good hanging around with people that agree with you all the time, or if they disagree, you're very gentle about it. Sometimes you need to be told, look, your opinion is just out of kilter with the rest of us. We just don't see it that way. You're wrong. Now, it's hard sometimes to receive that information from someone. Even if it is said gently, it's still a little bit hard. But if it's said without sensitivity, it tends to be rejected. So criticism has to be delivered in a way which is both truthful and pointed, and yet not an attack. And the reason for that is because if it's delivered in a forceful way, it'll simply be rejected. There won't be any benefit to it. Those of us who are somewhat advanced in our maturity, and we can just accept that somebody else's opinion of our ego and our behavior and our personality traits, that's just what it is. It's an opinion, and it doesn't threaten who we are. Then we would welcome criticism, because we know that that is a necessary condition for accomplishment and improvement. If you're a little bit tied up in self-love, and you're prideful about that, and you can't see that there might be something wrong with your personality that could be changed, if you're tied up like that, it's hard to take criticism. It really is. It blinds us to the truth when we can't take criticism. And if we're blinded to the truth, then all we see is false. We don't see the way things are. We think in terms of how we want it to be, and that's what we see. We're living in a delusion if we refuse criticism. Certain politicians come to mind at this point in the world's history who might be described in that way. The particular detail in any work of art is what makes it stupendously beautiful sometimes. One word chosen as this, not that. One colour, one shape, one shade, one musical note, one pause in the music that you're not expecting. These tiny, tiny details make the difference between, yeah, really nice and, wow, beautiful. Now, the attention to detail that a very good artist has comes from their yearning to achieve perfection. That attention to detail is the precious quality that they have to make things just so. Not like that, not like that. It has to be like this, because this is the only way it can transport the viewer, the reader, into a higher state of being. It's the detail that moves us into the zone of spiritual awareness. And it's very hard for us to learn how to spot that detail, almost impossible, without criticism. Now, of course, we can replace criticism by others with self-criticism to some significant extent, but there's always going to be that last little bit that we can't get, because how can we know everything if we're growing? We have to find the bits that we can't find alone. So the the idea of criticism is discussed fully within this degree as something that is a requirement for those of us who are trying to accomplish great things. Originality is the essence of beautiful artworks, and this is also true of the artwork of our personality, the artwork of our lives. If it's not original, then it's normal, it's ordinary, it's the same as anybody else. And if you do the same job and you go to the same employers and you live in the same district and you just carry on doing the same thing all of the time, then your life cannot be an expression of originality. It has to be the differences that you make in your life that express your originality. And when we're moving into this area of moving away from convention, away from acceptable norms within society to become original, then we're stepping into awkward territory, sometimes dangerous territory, because we're stepping out of the protection that we receive from normality. People who behave in a normal way are relatively safe. Artists, musicians, painters, they're not normal people. They're on the margins of society. They're considered abnormal, strange, and therefore their behavior is subject to criticism. Some of that criticism is positive in that they can use it to become better at their work. Some of it is negative in that it diminishes their self-confidence. The people that can receive criticism best are the more mature, self-aware beings. They'll take it if it's meaningful, otherwise it'll just wash off them like water off a duck's back. Then it's really healthy to open yourself up to be criticized. And mainly we're talking really by metaphor on the level of psychology and personality. If somebody actually criticizes your behavior, criticizes what you've done and the way you are and how you speak, don't just dismiss it. I mean, protect yourself from attack by all means, but look at the content. Somebody who attacks you may actually be giving you something really useful. It may be that you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just ignore the content of what they say just because you know it's an attack. Some attacks are based on truth and delivered badly, but the truth is what you want. Don't worry too much about the attack. Get the truth, because with the truth that can only sometimes come from criticism, you can improve. And we're also looking at a certain aspect of being, which is the artist or the poet or the musician, anyone who's sensitive to what's going on the emotional level, really, the atmosphere that's around us in our world. Many people concentrate on the facts of the matter, what can be measured, and others, like the poets and artists, they examine the emotional reality that we're going through. So what's the relationship between these two things? The sensitive approach to beauty and expression of emotion on the one hand, and criticism on the other. Well, it's really only the self-aware person that can respond well to criticism. A lot of people are very invested in their egos, and any criticism against what they have done hurts their self-love, their prideful self-love. Whereas somebody who responds well to criticism is untroubled by the fact that somebody examines their being, their output, and finds it wanting in perfection. How could any sort of mature person really find that objectionable? Of course we are not perfect. Of course somebody else is going to see something about what we have done which they would have done differently, or they would have seen better had somebody else done it differently. It's a normal aspect of life to receive criticism, and those people that cannot receive it really need to think about why not. Why do you feel so injured in yourself that somebody else's opinion of you matters that much, that you would become hurt by this. So it's food for thought if you can't take criticism. It's a requirement if you are on a path towards self-perfection. We do have an unconscious side, and our unconscious side cannot see the imperfections in us quite so clearly as somebody else can. And if we want to move towards perfection, towards self-improvement, self-development, which of course we do because we're on a spiritual path, then we must have some notification of the work we need to do in a certain area of our lives, of our personalities. Now, if we go to a teacher or a spiritual guide or somebody, then they're likely to help us with this if we ask. Otherwise, it's not really normally done in a friendship circle or in a business context. Not to examine the personality of a person and say, well, look, really, that's not okay what you're doing there. It's a very good friend indeed that would criticize another in a loving way. Now, of course, in a loving way is an important part of this. If you criticize somebody in a way that they feel attacked, then the criticism is impotent. It won't work. It has no effect. If you offer criticism in an attacking manner, it does more damage, more harm than good. And there's a very delicate line to find here. Sometimes straight speaking is a great gift to a friend. Sometimes they're just not ready for it.